What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're here for another episode of Let's Talk Dynasty, and we are going to be discussing your Dynasty fantasy football trades that you have submitted into our Discord, ready for us to review them here on this episode. If you guys are not members of that Discord, you can join that Discord for free. It is going to be linked in the description and in the comments section. As I mentioned, all of these trades have been pulled directly out of that Discord over the last couple of weeks, but we're here to review them today, and we cannot review them without my co-host, so we got to get MFGDs in the building. But without wasting any more time, let's start talking some Dynasty trades. War, how we doing today, man?
Hey, man, we doing good. We rolling, ready to get some fantasy trades going.
Hell yeah, man. So, look, I feel like we shouldn't really waste too much time. I feel like we should just go right into the video of today, and let's start pulling up these trades. You should see them on the screen now. The first trade that we got here is a tiny little deal from Killer 10 and Screet FM. Or FR, whatever. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Whatever. 10 teams, super flex, half PPR, tight end premium. You got JJ McCarthy for Jonathon Brooks. 2 rookies in this year's class. Both rookies missed the first parts of the season. JJ will miss the rest of the season to injury. But how do we feel about a deal like this?
I'm leaning the JJ McCarthy side. Anytime when it comes to running back, I feel like there's some replacement level. Jonathon Brooks, he has so much hype coming into the season. And I kind of just feel like any other circumstance, nobody would do this trade. But yeah, I think this is a pretty open and shut one. I'm JJ McCarthy all the way on this one.
I fully agree. And it's not just because, we got the Minnesota stuff in the back, but it is coming down to the fact that there's a couple talking points I'll hit very briefly, and then we'll get on out of this trade because it is very simple to me. But look, seeing what Kevin O'Connell has done with Sam Darnold in that offense, seeing the weapons that are there. Obviously, like, Darnold hasn't even had Hawkinson to start the year. He didn't have Addison for 3 or 4 games there. To see what Darnold has done and quite frankly, performing as a top 10 fantasy football quarterback over the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, JJ McCarthy is going to be an awesome fantasy football asset when he is healthy, when he is in the lineup, because I think he has a little bit more juice in really all aspects than Sam Darnold does. He has more arm strength. He has a little bit more accuracy. He can still do some of the stuff with the legs that Darnold does, is a little bit mobile. Like, I think JJ McCarthy is probably one of the best under the radar buys in Dynasty at the moment, because I think when he comes in and when he's healthy, we could be looking at a guy who flirts with QB1 numbers right away as a starter, and you're not going to be able to buy him at this low of a price much longer. Jonathon Brooks, I think people are excited about him. We've seen Chuba Hubbard have success with Dave Canales over the last couple of weeks. He's putting up 20-point weeks in your PPR leagues, but at the end of the day, it comes down to running back production versus quarterback production in a super flex format, and give me the quarterback production 100 times out of 100 times when it comes to the running back, because as you've seen, if it's not Jonathon Brooks, a guy like Chuba Hubbard can step in and do the same thing that Brooks would do in this offense. Like, it's very cut and dry with the running back position. We can pick guys up and play them. It's harder to find the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the promise and the potential of JJ McCarthy just far exceeds what Jonathon Brooks could ever do. I mean, quarterback versus running back, we've talked about it here before. Running back is almost literally like the least important position. Like, if you're a rebuilding team, for example, the first thing you want to throw overboard are the running backs. So,
yep.
So this is pretty open and shut.
Agreed. And one other point that I would make is, like, what was it, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, that we were drafting these guys a whole round apart? Like, Jonathon Brooks was a 2nd round pick in drafts, maybe a late first if you had a guy who really needed a running back. But at the end of the day, like, these guys were pretty spaced out in your rookie drafts. Neither of them have played, so nothing has changed as far as what we've seen with our eyes. Like, I don't really know what's changed. It seems like somebody was just like, I'd rather have a running back right now, and you can have my JJ McCarthy because he's not playing.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly, that's the only thing I could think of.
Whatever. Let's move on to the next one here. The next trade is going to be a 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium start 10. And Seacrest here, he says he is rebuilding. So he trades away Saquon in a rebuild. He gets Drake London, Michael Pittman, and a 2026 2nd-round pick. How we feeling?
I like that for him. Pittman, he isn't setting the world on fire right now. In fact, he's hurt. But he is a youngish wide receiver. Love the Drake Drake London part of it. The second round pick is just the icing on the cake. Again, running backs, like even great running backs like Saquon Barkley, and he's up there in age too for a running back. So you getting a young wide receiver back too, for that matter, and a draft pick. I like his side.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think when you are rebuilding, I did a video on the channel earlier this summer where I kind of talked about like strategies or tips that I like to use when I'm rebuilding. And one of those tips is to turn your one asset into multiple assets without really losing upside, like trying to figure out really strategic ways to do that. And I feel like, obviously Saquon Barkley, he is burning bright as the sun at the moment. Like he is, I think right now, there's probably not another running back that you want in football other than Saquon Barkley on your team for fantasy. Like he is the number one guy. But Drake London is performing very well. Pittman still has upside despite him not showing it so far this year. And 2026, second round pick, it's not crazy, but also, another piece thrown into this deal as well. So you still get an elite asset, or what we think can be an elite asset at the wide receiver position, which is much more sustainable long term. You get a good asset in Michael Pittman, and then a third asset, just cherry on top. I love that type of trade for Seacrest.
Yeah, 100%. Saquon is great, but I'm always going to go with the longevity and the PPR upside of the wide receivers.
For sure. All right, man, let's move on to this next one here. This next trade here is submitted by Spency Football. Now, this is a 10-team Superflex PPR, and he says it's a deep league. He is currently the number one team. So he receives a 25 first. He trades away Jordan Mason, Jerry Jeudy, and Allen Lazard. Pretty simple, but how we feeling?
Let's see. I mean, I want the first round pick, man. I'm not going to lie. Like, we already talked about in previous videos about Jordan Mason. He's a flash in the pan. Christian McCaffrey comes back. If Elijah Mitchell was there, I would even say that, we wouldn't even know of a Jordan Mason other than the fact that he's a member of the San Francisco 49ers. Jerry Jeudy he's a whatever of a wide receiver, and Allen Lazard is also whatever of a wide receiver. So give me the 25 first.
Yeah, I mean, again, another pretty simple trade to me. I mean, it's 10-team. Guys like Lazard, Jeudy, Mason, like they're fine. Mason, you could plug in and play right now, but he is a rental of all rentals at the moment. And honestly, after last night's game, is he gonna keep playing, or are they gonna go with Garendo, or what are they gonna do moving forward? Like it could be 2 weeks of Garendo and then Christian McCaffrey's back. So who knows? Still more to develop, but obviously you didn't make that trade knowing that Mason was going to get hurt. These are just end of the roster assets that, if Lazard shows you a little bit of something, Jeudy shows you a little something in a bye week when you're injured, you need a flex you can plug in. You might look at those guys, but none of those guys are going to have the talent or the upside of a guy that you're going to use a first round pick on. And also, one thing that doesn't go into consideration sometimes when you trade for draft picks, it just makes you a little bit more liquid. Everybody in your league is going to want to trade for a first round pick. Not everybody's going to like Jerry Jeudy. Not everybody's going to like Allen Lazard. So when you can package that, go get the first, now you have more trade options or more trade possibilities in the future because people are going to want the first round pick because it could be whatever they want it to be. They can use that pick however they want when they have it. So it just opens up a little bit more doors and further negotiations down the line. So I definitely enjoy, getting a little bit more liquid here and being able to have the first round pick for just some assets that really are quite frankly not much after a couple more weeks.
Nondescript assets.
Exactly. So let's move on to the next one. Here we have a 12-team Superflex tiered PPR. So it's half points for the running backs, full points for the wide receivers, and 1.5 for the tight end. And then it's a 6-point passing touchdown, start 11. You get Garrett Wilson, who's underperformed so far this year, and a 26th third, which, for us, when we say like thirds in 2 years down the line and stuff, we don't care. It don't matter. And then you get Luke McCaffrey, a first next year, and a second in 2026. Are you just taking Garrett Wilson over Luke in the package, or are you going to take the package at this point? Has Garrett Wilson burned us too much?
I mean, no, Garrett. Okay, let's look out here. Do we think that Garrett Wilson just woke up one day and then all of a sudden he forgot how to play football? No, he still has the same upside that he's always had. Like, let's be honest here. If Luke McCaffrey's name was Luke Bryan, will we even care? What?
Some people might.
Will we okay, Luke Bryan on the football field? Will we even care that that he's even in
Yeah.
this trade. I mean, the first is the most appealing thing on that side, but are we really trading Garrett Wilson for a 25 first? I don't think we are. At least I'm not. So I mean, despite the assets, despite Luke McCaffrey, I'm taking the Garrett Wilson side. You even get a little cherry on top with the 26th third. So that's the side I'm going. I'm going with the most talented player in here. I'm not really worried about his offensive struggles. It's only going into week 6. He'll probably turn it around. If he doesn't turn it around, I'm looking more at Aaron Rodgers than I'm looking at him. So I think his future is still bright. I mean, are we looking at Breece Hall and saying that he sucks now because of that? I think clearly there's some things going on with the New York Jets, and I don't blame the talented Garrett Wilson at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. There's going to be people that are like, I've held Garrett Wilson for 3 years now. And every year it's Zach Wilson's fault. Oh, it's this guy's fault. Oh, it's, Nathaniel Hackett is now the issue. And it's like eventually it's like, okay, we've had Garrett Wilson on our team for 3 years and he hasn't done anything really super beneficial to our fantasy football rosters. Like he's been finishing as, wide receiver 22, wide receiver 25 on the year. And every year we rank him as like wide receiver 7. And so I think that there's people that really it's the name fatigue and it's the burn and it's that hope of like we keep saying it's going to happen and it never does. And people are upset about it. That said, you are trading hope in this deal, a 25 first. You hope that's a good player. A 26 second. You hope that's a good player. Luke McCaffrey, we don't even know what that is, but look, can he be a fine player one day? Sure. Garrett Wilson is the best asset in the deal, and I feel like there's still going to be players where, like, maybe you don't love Garrett Wilson, and maybe you don't want to deal with the Garrett Wilson, roller coaster anymore. Somebody is more likely to buy the Garrett Wilson from you, I think, than the package of Luke McCaffrey and whatever it may be. Like, so that being said, I do take the Garrett Wilson side. I agree. Garrett Wilson for me in my dynasty rankings, I'm moving him down. Like he's moved down for me a little bit. I don't believe that Garrett Wilson at this moment can enter that upper tier that people have felt like he could enter and we felt like he could enter at times. I don't believe that that's going to happen right now. That said, he's still valuable and he's the most valuable asset in this deal. So just give me that side.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even think it's even close, honestly.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the next one. We got some Mark Andrews. Talk about people getting burned. 12-team super flex tiered PPR start 2 tight ends. So they have to start 2 tight ends in this league, which sounds horrible based on the state of the tight end position. And he says team number 1 is 2-2. So a 2-2 team in a 2 tight end league is trading for Mark Andrews and $10 fab. I don't know why the hell we need $10 thrown into this, but he gets $10. And then he gives up Aaron Jones, Tyler Conklin, Cade Otton. I mean, on paper, it looks just disgusting. This looks gross. This is one of those trades that it's like, it could be a fair trade, it could be an unfair trade, but the way that it just looks, the names in it, makes me want to just decline it and not look at it anymore. That said, how do you feel about buying Mark Andrews at this moment?
It's pretty... it's tough, man. You know how I feel about Mark Andrews. I think I've only seen evidence that he's done. This is tough, man. Aaron Jones is having a good season, but we know that's in a dynasty league. It's season to season. Yes, season to season with him. Conklin, I've never liked him. I don't want anything on the New York Jets if it's not Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson, or the backup running back. That's too early for Braylon. I like Cade Otton, so I like Aaron Jones and Cade Otton. I don't even think Conklin needed to be in this trade, to be honest.
See, I like Conklin, but I don't like Otton. So I'm kind of the same way as you, where it's like I could get rid of one of the tight ends and it still really wouldn't change too much. I think that said, another thing that needs to be,
because he used to wear that purple.
Viking? Maybe. I think he's outperformed Cade Otton too, though, just from like fantasy production. But look, man, I think one thing that also needs to be discussed, and maybe this was made before that deal or before this happened, but this Aaron Jones injury, I'm a little closer than I feel like some people, are at times, just because I follow the Vikings a little bit closer than most people do.
Yeah.
It sounds like this thing is, I don't know. I'm not getting great vibes out of the injury that he has at the moment. Like it very much sounds like they got the MRI and they kind of got mixed information is what it kind of feels like. I know that they're not going to tell us, the negative news for the most part, unless it's confirmed, but it does feel like this could very much be a multi-week absence for Aaron Jones. And at 30 years old, as a running back, multi-week absences, they kill your value in a dynasty format. Like if you're 30 at the running back position and we're not seeing you on the field for 2, 3, 4 weeks, we forget about you. Like, it's done. And I don't know. I think he's on borrowed time. I think he's probably right now it's not a question. He is the most productive asset in this deal. So if you need the running back, I understand it. I'm gonna go out on a limb here though, and I'm gonna say I think I like the Mark Andrews side. I'm
I
holding
don't
out.
I don't blame you. It's hard to just completely throw the dirt on top of Mark Andrews, but man,
It's just, I think Aaron Jones is a replaceable asset. Conklin and Otten are assets that are like whatever. I guess 2 tight ends, it makes him a little bit more valuable than normal, but I feel like 2 tight ends also makes a guy like Mark Andrews more valuable than normal. And I just think he, based on the settings, is probably the guy that I want. And team number 1 being 2-2 tells me that they don't know if they're a contender or not. They don't know if they're going to be one of the top competitive teams. And so getting rid of the borrowed time running back, the Aaron Jones, and getting an elite tight end, or what we still think can possibly be an elite tight end, I don't mind the move. Do you believe, like I believe, that there's a very good chance that maybe even next year, as early as next year, we're looking at Mark Andrews as tight end 1 of a different team, and he's right back to his old self?
I think it isn't likely.
It isn't likely. You think he's just buried under
No,
Isaiah
I'm
Likely?
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm doing the Isaiah Likely thing. It depends what teams he goes to. I mean, there's a ton of teams that look. Let me say this. I could definitely see a range of outcomes where Mark Andrews goes to a different team and becomes Mark Andrews. He's never played with an elite passer of the football. Lamar can pass the football now. That's not what I'm not. Don't hear what I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Lamar can pass the football, but we've never seen him with a prolific passer. And if he ends up in one of those offenses, let's say he ends up going to the Los Angeles Chargers and helping revive that thing over there, that thing that's currently not succeeding in the passing game with
Greg
her,
Roman.
yeah, Greg Roman. So I mean, I could see something like that happening. So I definitely won't rule that out completely.
Yeah, for me, the way that I've been looking at it to start the year, it's definitely not been what we want out of Mark Andrews, but it feels very much more like the usage of Todd Monken has kind of changed, and Andrews is not being used the same way that he was in years past. And I don't believe that it's necessarily talent of Mark Andrews falling off. Now, he obviously had the surgery in the offseason that he had to deal with, and that may be, lingering as he's in to the season right now, and he's dealing with a little bit of that post-surgery slump that some of these guys get into at times. But I don't think he's like lost talent. He's not super old for a tight end either. Like, we see guys like, Travis Kelce going into 34 years old seasons or 35-year-old seasons and still being able to produce, tight end 1 seasons for us. I think Mark Andrews is going to be in that same type of ballpark. He's a guy that I think if you're looking for tight end production and you want to gamble and you want to risk, which at the tight end position, like if you're going to risk on anything, risk on trying to find the elite tight ends at cheap value. I don't mind people trying to buy low on Mark Andrews right now in the dip, because I think he's one of the biggest fallers. I mean, we did a risers and fallers episode 2 weeks ago or something like that, and Mark Andrews was on that episode as one of the biggest fallers in dynasty rankings right now. And if people are panicking still because it still hasn't gotten better, I'm willing to throw something to go get him on my roster. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But we've seen him be elite before, and I'm willing to take a gamble on that at the tight end position, especially in a format like this where you're starting 2 tight ends and it's a premium 1.5 points for the tight end position.
I definitely don't think it's talent. I think it's more so of the passing game. They're throwing to Likely, they're throwing to Kolar. I think it's also a change in the philosophy. For like years, it was like Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, he's the one getting all the targets. He's the one getting all the love from Lamar. But now you got Zay Flowers, you got Isaiah Likely, you got guys like that. And Rashad Bateman, even you have those guys, and now it's just not Lamar and Mark Andrews anymore. So I mean, and part of me is honestly, I feel like he's starting to lose importance to the Ravens organization as well.
Yeah, and
That
go ahead.
leads me more to what you were saying with him potentially going to a different team. I mean, what if Los Angeles, for example, says, "Hey, we'll throw you a third or whatever." I don't know if that's too pricey for Mark Andrews, but we'll throw you a third for Mark Andrews. Greg Roman weapons there. Like, why wouldn't they do that? They still need, I don't think they've given up hope on making it to the playoffs. So a midseason trade with Mark Andrews, I think he should be on trade alert, to be honest. So this could
Interesting.
pay off big. This will pay off big for team one if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we both agree on the sentiment of if you are buying Mark Andrews, there is some additional upside to be had if, you know, a couple things pan out. But I don't feel like I'm paying a lot by moving Aaron Jones, Conklin, and Otten. And at the end of the day, too, like I think when we get back to like actual like NFL team construction and things like that, like when you look at Andrews' contract, we talked about this in an episode in the offseason. Like we're about a year away from Mark Andrews' contract being able to be almost like completely gotten rid of without taking too much dead cap. So like if they do want to move on from Mark Andrews, I think this next offseason is actually the best offseason for them to do that. So, you know, we could be 6 months away or 9 months away from maybe the Ravens eventually moving on from Mark Andrews. And I don't even know if that's going to be the best thing for his value. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe part of what's hurting Mark Andrews is the fact that they just brought in King Henry and Henry's running the damn ball, and that's the way that this is. So overall, though, I'm willing to buy on the tight end. I think when you're looking across the landscape for fantasy in general, you know, pretty much everybody every single week is starting a bad tight end. So none of us are getting elite production out of anybody for the most part. So those of you that can find the elite production, you do get the positional advantage, no matter how much people on the internet want to say, you know, because everybody was talking about this offseason, oh, this is the best the tight end landscape has ever looked. And we were part of that. It looked like we had a lot of upside on the tight end. It's still a tight end position. It's still panning out the same way that it's always panned out. But when you find the elite guys, when you have the guys who produce, you have an advantage over the league mates. It's just harder right now, I think, to find who those guys are. Let me ask you this. This is just a little side question. If you could trade Mark Andrews right now for Jake Ferguson, are you doing it?
No.
I think I'd take Jake Ferguson moving forward.
Probably, it's just I've kind of talked myself into like this whole Mark Andrews trade. Even while you were talking, like I did a quick like search, like is there anything out there about Mark Andrews trade? And the whispers are starting to get a little bit louder. Some of them even say the Chargers, Broncos. If he goes to the Broncos, that'll still be nasty though. I think
it'd be nasty, but he would be their best offensive weapon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I mean,
and Sean Payton has used tight ends pretty heavily in guys like Jimmy Graham and things like that before.
Yeah. I just think that the Ravens have two, maybe even three. Kolar, if he's eating any good, they have the room to improve their team or improve their assets by trading away Mark Andrews. That's just the reality of it. I don't think it'll hurt the Ravens if they did that.
Agreed.
So I mean, tricky.
Here's the thing, man.
He does become more valuable than Ferguson if he gets traded.
Maybe Ferguson looks legit, man. But that said, any contending roster that I have where I can maybe buy low on Mark Andrews, like I'd be willing to go see what the price is on a guy like Mark Andrews on those rosters. But we've talked about Mark Andrews for far too long. I just felt like it was a good conversation to have about Andrews. This trade here, though, it's a 12-team super flex PPR. You get a 0.75 tight end premium, so extra juicy tight end premium here, and start 11. Team number 1 is 2-3, so they have a losing record through 5 weeks at the moment. Alec Pierce, Isiah Pacheco, and a 26 first. They trade away Breece Hall and Allen Lazard. How are we feeling about moving off of Breece Hall as a probably trending towards a rebuilding roster?
But why would you make that decision at 2-3?
It feels like you're 2 wins away from being 4-3. Or 4-3, and now you're a playoff squad.
In some of our leagues, dude, I have a team because we do the median. I have teams that are like 2-8, and I'm still like, okay, let me keep going for it. Like I think 2-3 is too early to pivot to a rebuild. Unless player one already seeing some structural reasons for why his team won't be able to contend. Then yeah, but even so, I still don't like the idea of trading. And he's a running back, and you know how I feel about running backs, but this feels like nothing for Breece Hall.
I was gonna say Lazard and Pierce, like we could almost just throw them out. Like I don't even care about those two guys. They're like a wash to me. But it's basically Breece Hall and Pacheco in a first to me. And that first is, 2 years out. But I think one thing that I would argue is that maybe there's an argument for him hedging his bets here. He doesn't know whether or not he's going to be competitive, or he doesn't know whether or not he's going to be a contender. But he feels like if I get Pacheco, and Pacheco's back in a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks, can he at least come close to Breece Hall's production through the end of the year? And I just get the first round pick thrown in, as a potential hedge for the future. I think that maybe might be the argument for this type of deal, but do you think that the gap is too large that you're not hedging that bet?
Gap is too large. Like Pacheco and Hall are in two different tiers. And if Kareem Hunt plays well leading up to Pacheco coming back for this fantasy season, at least, they're not gonna over rely on Isiah Pacheco when he gets back. They're gonna keep him fresh for the playoffs by also using Kareem Hunt. So I mean, I don't even think this will be a good hedge. Then he traded for a first and 26 when the running back draft is 25. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're going to trade away Breece Hall for a first, you want it in this draft coming up, not the draft after this one. So I don't
Yeah.
know, man.
Fair enough. I think, look, unpopular opinion. I don't think Pacheco is gonna give us the production we want out of him probably until 2025. Like
Right.
I think until next year we're probably not gonna get what we wanted. And even then, we throw the wrinkle in, which I feel like we need to throw in the disclaimer, like he's a running back, low draft capital. This is a good running back draft class. Can it get messy next year? Like Pacheco is a very dangerous asset, I think, in fantasy football at the moment, and he always kind of has been. I think it's easy to say all running backs are, but when you have the low draft capital and there's just low cost being associated with you to an NFL roster, as good as you are, as good as Pacheco has been, we've seen them bring guys like Damian Williams in and run Damian Williams, and Damian Williams wins them a Super Bowl because he's running against the Niners. You know what I mean? And then get rid of him, get Isiah Pacheco. Oh, grab CEH. Oh, grab Kareem Hunt. Like they just cycle through these guys, and everybody gets 2 or 3 years maybe where they're the starter, but is Pacheco's time almost up? Like that's a question that I would have going into next year. But look, for me, I know Breece, he's been disappointing, and it makes sense why all of these guys who have been disappointing are popular trade candidates in these videos right now, because people are sick of them, panicking on Breece Hall, panicking on Garrett Wilson, panicking on Mark Andrews. I'll just take the talented guy in Breece Hall. If I wanted to make a move like this, one, I probably would need, like you said, for that first round pick to be next year, so I can try and replace the running back with a running back in the draft. And I would want the piece not to be Pacheco. It would have to be a wide receiver. Like I'd like to try and get a running back, or one thing that I would have tried to do is probably try and go 25 first and like Jalen Waddle, buy low on the wide receiver. Maybe he gets Tua back in a couple of weeks, and then you have a wide receiver plus a rookie running back next year in your potential, rebuild. And you can plug and play your running back in this year if you want to play for the playoffs or for the championship. And if you don't, you got the wide receiver that's going to last you for 4 more years, 3 more years that you can feel comfortable with. So that probably is the move that I would have went. It's tough to know. I wish we would have had context as to what their vibe is with the team at 2 and 3. Like if they still feel like they're competitive, or if they feel like they're throwing in the towel. I feel like that would make you feel a lot more strong about each direction. But at the end of the day, I'll take the Breece Hall side right here, and I probably would have done this sell of Breece a little bit differently.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I still don't think that he should even be pivoting to rebuilding this early. It's just
So here's a question that somebody actually asked in the Discord when we were going to do the the AMA. One of the questions that came in was like, when do you think about rebuilding? Like at what time throughout the year do you look at your record and say, okay, maybe it's time to look towards next season? Do you have to be, week 8, 9, 10? Is there a week that you're looking at, or is it more so just landscape to where you're looking at like, I am 4 games behind, our playoff cutoff line, and now I should start looking at something else? I'm 3 games behind the playoff cutoff line.
I think all decisions should be made like as far as like you should have a good idea what direction you should go after week 8. So and I think that's in fantasy and real life football. Week 8 is like, okay, my team was struggling at the beginning of the season. Week 8 is where I'm like, okay, we should be picking it up by now. If your team is like 1-7, you probably should start looking at, okay, if I don't go on a 6-game winning streak at some point, I'm probably not gonna, so I'm a week 8 guy.
Fair enough. I think I messaged you a couple weeks ago, and I said, my plan was kind of like week 7. I was going to start really assessing rosters and seeing where they were at. And I think that's the right call, is you kind of want to get to 7, 8, 9. And I think I am looking at, what is my upcoming schedule? Do I still have tough teams that I have to play? What do the bye weeks of my roster look like? Like, am I going to have to play the number 1 team in the league and I'm missing my top 2 running backs because they're on bye that week? Like, I want to look at those types of things and start making some moves to adjust for that. But I think staying the course for at least the first two months of the season, 7, 8 weeks, that's the best process, because I had a team where it's still a small sample size. I mean, we're in week 6 now, but I had a team where I thought coming into the year, like the plan was we're going to try and make a run. We got to make a run. We got to see what we can do. Like this is a good, strong roster. There's some older assets on it. We got to capitalize on the time that, like I have Derrick Henry and stuff on that roster, you know? So it's like you got to capitalize on the production we can get out of them right now and see if we can make a run at a championship. And I started off the year, like we have a median, and I started off the year 0-4. The first 2 weeks I went 0-4. Going into week 3, I was like 1-5. And it's like, damn, dude, like this roster is not performing the way that I thought. And so I was toying with, okay, is it premature? Should I start looking at rebuilding? And I was like, yeah, let's just stay the course. Let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. Well, now I have a winning record in that league. Like it's like we're back in the hunt. I'm like the number 4 team in the league at the moment. And it's like you just stayed the course and was patient, and it kind of just solved itself, you know? So I do think giving it time to see what you really have. The first 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season, they can be very deceiving at times. And I think that we're seeing that as well. Guys like Mark Andrews, guys like Garrett Wilson, guys like Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, it's deceptive. You see 2 bad weeks in the first 4 games of the season, and you're like, these guys suck. They're not what we thought they would be. And then the rest of the year, the cream rises to the top and they become RB4 at the end of the season, you know, RB3 overall. Like this is what happens with fantasy. Just be a little bit more patient. So I agree with you, 2-3, you know, probably a little premature to blow up a roster, but I don't mind hedging your bets. I just would have hedged it with the wide receiver instead of Pacheco, but we don't got to talk too much more there. Let's talk about this one. Seacrest again with another submission. We got a 12-team super flex full PPR tight end premium, and it's a start 10. Now we got Kyler Murray, DeVonta Smith, and a 25-second. He's trading away Jalen Hurts, George Pickens, and Tyrone Tracy Jr. How we feeling about this type of move? I mean, it's pretty simple. You got the quarterback for the quarterback, the wide receiver for the wide receiver, and you trade the running back for the draft pick. But how do we feel about the assets?
Every asset on the Kyler Murray side is better than the asset on the other side.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going Kyler Murray over Jalen Hurts.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I am. I'm going DeVonta over Pickens. I'm going that second over Tracy. I don't like trading for running backs that pop off in like 1 week and then like trade for them immediately. Because for all we know, Singletary could be back, and then next thing you know, this guy turns back into a pumpkin. So I definitely wouldn't have to see a larger body of work, but I don't really see anything in this trade that wouldn't suggest that the Kyler Murray side shouldn't be the overall choice here.
Yeah, look, I agree with most of what you say. I think I still have Jalen Hurts over Kyler Murray in my rankings. A lot of people are down on Jalen at the moment, but I think a lot of people are just overlooking the fact that he hasn't played with DeVonta Smith. He hasn't played with A.J. Brown to start the year. Like, these guys have not been in the lineup. And so I think a lot of people are overlooking that. Kyler Murray, obviously, you know I love the guy. I feel like there's not much to say about it. But to me, DeVonta Smith is an upgrade to George Pickens. The second is the upgrade to Tyrone Tracy. So I lean the Kyler Murray, the DeVonta Smith in the second side in one of my leagues where I'm kind of hedging some bets for the future as well. Now that we're getting into 6, 7, one of my favorite things that I've been doing in that league is, maybe this is something other people do, but I don't know. I've been all off season long, I was picking up, just running back 2s on depth charts, running back 3s on depth charts off of the waiver wire and putting them on the back end of the roster. And then when they get starting reps, because as backup running backs, you get starting reps quite often. Guys like Trey Sermon were on the roster. Guys like Cam Akers were on the roster. Guys like Tyrone Tracy are on the roster. I've been out there sending, hey, Jonathan Taylor manager, do you want to buy Trey Sermon for a third? Sure. He buys him for a third. Hey, here's Tyrone Tracy. He popped off. He looked good. Anybody want to buy for a second? No? Anybody want to buy for a third? Sure, here you go. Because I want to just keep recycling that waiver wire running back into draft capital that, again, makes me liquid, and then I can do whatever I want with it next year in a draft class that is strong at the running back position. So you can keep doing it over and over and over again. I think that's what this Tyrone Tracy thing is. But yeah, man, Pickens, he's fine. He's still severely handicapped at the moment, in my opinion, by the play of Justin Fields. And people are going to say that they like what Justin Fields has been doing. I'll tell you what, in 3 of his last 5 games, he's failed to throw for over 150 yards. George Pickens cannot be a superstar wide receiver for fantasy football when the offense is throwing for less than 150 yards a week.
Mm-hmm.
I get
That's
it. I get it. There was a week there where Fields threw for what, like 280? Like he
was up there.
He did it once, but the larger of the sample size is him doing it less. And the recent report, I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but the recent report is that Russell Wilson is lurking in the background, just ready to take that job.
Yeah.
So
same thing. Heard. Yeah.
Maybe that helps George Pickens if Russell Wilson is under center. But just give me DeVonta Smith and Kyler Murray's side here with the second.
It's pretty easy choice there.
All right. Well, let's go to this one. I think we got a couple more, 2 or 3 more. We'll go through them a little bit quicker because I think we're at 40 minutes. We're not bad. Deebo Samuel and a third for Trey Benson and 3 seconds next year. It is a 12-team Superflex full PPR and a tight end premium. So you get Benson and basically just a quarter of your second round rookie draft next year for Deebo Samuel. How we feeling?
That's a shit ton of seconds, man. Like,
it's a lot.
I would have a difficult time turning down that many seconds, especially if I knew one of them were like at the top of the second round. Now it is 12 teams. It is 12 teams. So that is something to think about. Deebo. Did they provide context? I don't know if you said it or not. Is the team receiving Deebo, are they a contender?
I think they are.
So, I mean, that makes a little bit of sense for them. And if the other team is rebuilding, it makes sense for them.
And I think he mentioned that the seconds, I didn't have space to fill it on the screen, but I think he mentioned that the seconds he believes will be all mid to late. But obviously trying to project where seconds will fall in week 4 of the fantasy football season and week 5 of the fantasy football season ain't great.
I'm having a hard time, so it's probably a fair trade. Honestly.
That's what I think. I think it's a fair deal. But I think that there's a lot of upside in getting the Benson in the 3 seconds, but it depends on the direction of that team. Like if that team is rebuilding and they move Deebo for Benson in 3 seconds, you love that. If you're getting Deebo and you're a contender, I think you love that too. I would make this trade either way, depending on those 2 different directions that your roster could go. But in a bubble, like if I just have to pick value, straight up value on paper, I think I'd just rather have Deebo in the 3rd.
Yeah, especially if you're a contender. So that's why I said it's so close that it's like it's probably our closest trade of the day so far.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of intrigue in that second, and then like you can move those seconds all off season, move a second for somebody else, move a second for somebody else, and all of a sudden you're looking at 4 assets for your Deebo Samuel. Let's move on to the next one here. K Clunk. Or J Clunk, we got a 10-team super flex PPR start 10. They said this is the first year post their startup, so they don't really know, nobody really knows how they are yet. But J Clunk gets Justin Jefferson and Chris Olave. He trades Diontae Johnson, Garrett Wilson, his 25 first, his 26 first, and his 27 first. So he trades the next 3 years of his future, plus Garrett Wilson and Diontae Johnson for Justin Jefferson and Olave. What do we think?
I don't care how much I love JJ. I don't care how much you love JJ. This is a horrible trade. Like, okay, so you traded away a player that's been a little bit productive now in Diontae Johnson. You traded away a guy that I can say is better than Chris Olave, to be honest. Even if he's not playing up to that level yet, he's better than Chris Olave. And then you traded generational draft capital. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years for JJ. Now, JJ is worth 2 firsts, but man, it's just the idea of trading Garrett Wilson and 3 for I don't know, man. I like JJ a lot. He's probably one of my top 5 favorite players in real life and fantasy. But even for him, this just feels like way too much.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, I see the argument of like, you feel like getting Jefferson and Olave allows you to forget about the next 2 or 3 years because you have your wide receivers figured out with Jefferson and Olave. And I get that. But at the same time, I'll tell you my philosophy. And I think people who watch this channel, they know, just based off of some of the analysis and advice that I give at times, I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to making these crazy moves. Like, I would rather not make the crazy move and stay put than make the crazy move and regret it down the line. So I'm a little bit more cautious. I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to things like this. And the reason why I bring that up is that the context is that this is the first year post startup. So you are in year 1 and you are now for this year plus the 3 years afterwards, you have now pot committed yourself into a contending window because you don't own your first until 2028. Right. You have to contend from now until 2028. That is a lifetime in fantasy football. We have leagues where it feels like we've been playing forever and we haven't even gotten out of year 4 yet. And that is how long he is already talking about being a contender because he has traded all of those first round picks. Now I get it. You can always go get the first round pick back, but it's always more expensive to get it back than it is to give it away. People charge you more to get your first back than they charge you to give it away. I love Justin Jefferson. I love Chris Olave. I love Garrett Wilson. All of these wide receivers are great wide wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, I still believe, the best wide receiver in Dynasty, the number one guy. You are making a decision in this trade to give up the next half decade of your Dynasty fantasy football life, 3-4 years, to just contend. And I think that puts such a stranglehold on how you have to play in this league moving forward, because every move has to be, I don't have the luxury of being a bad team because I don't own my pick. If I'm bad for no reason. I'm bad and I waste a year of buy-in. I waste a year of playing and I don't even get to benefit from it because my first round pick is now on Jay Baxter's squad and he gets to pick, my rookie. It really strangles the flexibility you have with a roster. And so what I like to do when I first start a year or when I first start a new league is that very first year, I really do try and avoid trading my first round pick. I want to see how the lay of the land is. I want to see the landscape shape out. Who's good? Who's bad? What does my team look like? Because every time that we do a startup, we believe we drafted a good roster. We drafted the players we wanted, but it never pans out the way that we think it's going to pan out. That's why this is fantasy football. So you can draft guys like Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and then they underperform. And now you're not a top contender, whereas in September, when we were looking at it strictly on paper, you were the number one team in the league, but now you're not performing that way. So that's the only word of caution that I would bring up is that, when you make a move like this, I know how good Justin Jefferson is. You are handcuffing your team into a contending window for 4 years. So you better be damn sure. I don't know what his roster looks like, but you better be damn sure that your team is the best team in this league or one of the best teams in this league, because for the next 3 years, you don't get the luxury of being bad.
And one more thing I want to add to what you just said. 3 years is a really long time. An Achilles injury could turn immortal players like JJ or good players like Olave and just turn this trade into one of the worst trades you'll ever make.
Do not wish that upon my...
I don't. But I'm just saying, 3 years in football, 3 years in a violent sport like football is an eternity. And to like have the expectations, like imagine like people who drafted Andrew Luck. I'll never forget. I was actually at a fantasy football draft at the moment Andrew Luck retired.
Yeah.
And someone had already drafted Andrew Luck. We weren't restarting the draft. That was just it. So, and you're thinking, oh yeah, we're going to have years of Andrew. No, like it's an eternity. 3 years is an eternity in the NFL.
Yep, I agree. And I think, look, if you wanted to trade for Justin Jefferson, fine. Is there a world where we can get this done war with Garrett Wilson, one of the first, and Diontae? Like Jefferson, Wilson, Diontae, and a first. Like we just take Olave and the 2 firsts out. I feel like we almost can get this deal done.
Yeah.
And you still have 2 years of first round picks where you don't have to, maybe you give them 25. You say this year we're going in. But then that gives you flexibility in 6 and 7 where it's like, if we don't do it, now we have flexibility.
Yeah. I think he could have got it done for less than this. I mean,
it's just a lot. It's a lot of your future that you are gambling. This is putting the mortgage on black. This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
At whatever. Anyways, I digress. Let's go on to this one here. I think this is the last one. Maybe. We'll see. You got a 12-team Superflex PPR start 9, and they have a kicker. So I want to say this right now. Starting 9 with a kicker is actually disgusting. Kickers, take them out of Dynasty. You don't need kickers in Dynasty. And then 9 with a kicker, that tells me you have 8 starters plus your kicker. You have like the shallowest teams ever. But I digress. I will not knock the way you play, but it is pretty, I don't know. It's definitely going to incentivize having superstars. Projected late first is the 25 first context that we have. You get Brian Robinson, Michael Penix, Bucky Irving, a late 25 first, a late 26 first, and a late 26 second. I'm assuming because he said that they're from the same guys, right? And then Austin Eckler, Kyler Murray, Zach Moss, and a third. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this deal. How much of this can we really eliminate so we can look at this in a smaller kind of vacuum?
We definitely got to break this down. It's a lot of shit going on in this trade.
Does Eckler, let's just start here. Does Eckler and the third equal Bucky or no?
Eckler and the third equal Bucky. I would say no, because we
Moss
don't know.
And the third equal Bucky?
Still no. I still feel like there's untapped upside with Bucky. So at this point we don't know. We just don't know what Bucky's going to be. So, but I do know that I don't have confidence in what Zach Moss is going to be.
Yeah. Eckler is very short term.
Yeah.
A third, we don't really care about them naturally.
Moss is very short term. They're not gonna, after next year's draft, they're not gonna roll with Moss and Chase Brown. I don't think
I
so.
mean, look, in my opinion, like with Eckler and Moss being thrown in, yes, they have value right now, but like when you're looking at like long-term value, they don't really feel like they have anything there. Like they just feel like guys that I'm willing to throw in to get the deal done. And so it's almost like we're looking at like Kyler Murray for this big ass package of players.
Yeah.
And
That's exactly
I guess if you want to take like Moss and Eckler out and we can take the second, like, yeah, we'll remove the second because maybe they equal a 26 second together. It's still Kyler for 2 firsts, Penix, Brian Robinson, and Bucky Irving.
It's a finesse. And we like Kyler, but yeah, that's a finesse.
You think it's a finesse for the guy receiving Penix? He's finessing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree. I don't know. We're talking about 12-team super flex. He says the projected first is late. So we're talking a late first next year in a class where they don't have quarterbacks. Bucky Irving, to me, he's just a guy. I don't think Bucky's that great. I think he's he can be the number one there, but he's just a guy. Brian Robinson, he's cool. Again, a guy. Penix, I didn't love him in the pre-draft process. Kirk Cousins is playing well. It could be 2-3 years down the line before Penix is even a starting quarterback for this team. And then 26 first, fuck the noise. Give me Kyler Murray for 3 years. Because I know Kyler Murray is outproducing these guys for the next 3 years.
That's just a lot of
fluff, in my opinion.
Interesting.
It's a lot of fluff. But I also think in order to make this move, you probably have to have very strong quarterbacks, right? Because if you're moving Kyler Murray and buying Penix, you're assuming you're not playing Penix at all this year. So you have to be strong. I don't know. And also, in a league here where it's start 9, how often are you going to be throwing Bucky into the lineup? Like, I feel like most weeks he's probably going to end up on your bench in a start 9. B-Rob, he'll crack your lineup as an RB2 sometimes. But like, I feel like every week that Kyler Murray's healthy, he's a guy that I'm not even thinking about it. I'm throwing him in my QB1 slot and forget about it.
It'll be interesting. It would have been interesting if they had kickers in this trade.
Dude, I probably wouldn't have reviewed it if it had kickers. But I don't know, man.
So what do we think of I can't even remember 2 kickers' names, dude. Cairo Santos and freaking Younghoe Koo. How did they impact the trade?
I don't know.
Let's pick the kicker who has a cooler name. I'm going Younghoe Koo.
The GOAT. But yeah, man, I don't know. I could see an argument for the other side just because the first, but the fact that he told us that they're going to be late, I don't know. I don't know, man. I can't confidently say that I want that left side. It feels like a lot of hope on the left side, and I know what I'm getting on the right side, and the right side is going to help me win for the next 2 years, where the left side, I don't know. I wish he would have said if he's rebuilding, because if he's rebuilding, I understand a little bit more, but he didn't say he's rebuilding.
I'm making the assumption that he's rebuilding. That's kind of what plays into my decision.
You better be.
Yeah,
you better be trading Kyler Murray. And even if you are rebuilding, getting like B-Rob and Bucky, I don't even know if they help you in a rebuild.
Bucky, maybe. Big maybe.
Why? Look, I'm going to ask a question. Why do we even look at, in a rebuild, why are we even looking at running backs more than just a 1-year basis? Like Bucky Irving next year, he could be toast. He could be nothing. He could be absolutely zero. And we're like, I traded for Bucky Irving in my rebuild thinking he could be my RB1 next year because Rachaad White, yada, yada. Let these motherfuckers go out and draft Ashton Jeanty, and now what?
It's over.
Done.
Donezo.
Whatever. That is the last one. So that is the last trade there. That will end our episode. So if you did enjoy today's episode, hit the like button for us. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And most importantly, if you enjoy this type of content, you want your Dynasty Fantasy Football trades featured in this type of content moving forward, go join the Discord, linked in the description, linked in the comment section. That is free to join. You just go in there to the Dynasty Trade Review channel and you submit those trades with a little bit of context for us, and they will be reviewed potentially on our next episode. Depending on the amount of submissions we get, we just pull about 10, 11 of those every week. Maybe yours will be next. So go submit them in that Discord. War, where can they find you at? Do you have anything else for the people before we get on out of here?
Yeah, come on and check us over on Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling. We talk about WWE. We talk about AEW. If you come on over, like, subscribe. We try to post videos every day when we can. And yeah, that's how we rolling. Thank you for the time.
Hell yeah. All right, folks, that is it. Nothing else for you today. Stick around tomorrow morning for a Start Sit live stream as we do every Sunday, and then another whole week of content. Y'all know the deal. That said, we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, peace out.